Thank you for viewing this RFID Community Connect video from AIM. AIM is an industry association for automatic identification technologies. It's not only RFID, but barcoding, IoT, or any other technologies that automatically identify and capture data. If you want to learn more about AIM, go to aimglobal.org or reach out to us to set up a one-on-one call where we can tell you a little bit more about how AIM can benefit your business.
And our next session is about RFID standards that enable interoperability. I will bring up the panel here. We have Chuck Evanhoe from AIM and Aware Innovations. He will be moderating today's session. We have Aileen Ryan from the RAIN Alliance, president of the RAIN Alliance. We have Chris Brown from TSC and Claude Tételin from GS1. So welcome panelists, and Chuck, I'll let you kick things off here.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Mark, for your great presentation. So this is a Q&A and a moderated panel. I've got a few questions I'm going to start, and I'd like to start with Aileen. One of the keys that we're talking about is standards, and we know that standards are the backbone of interoperability. But what does that actually mean in real practice, Aileen?
Thanks, Chuck, and thank you to the AIM team for inviting me onto the panel. I'm pleased to be here. So as Mark said, RAIN RFID is of course one type of RFID. It's sometimes referred to as UHF or RFID. So it's distinct from NFC, which is an RFID that operates in the HF spectrum, or other RFIDs that operate in low frequency. But standards really are, in my mind, effectively a shared language and a shared vocabulary which allow systems to communicate with each other. And we define a RAIN system as requiring two things. First of all, the air interface needs to be implemented both by the reader, or sometimes called the interrogator, and the tag. And there is a standard air interface for RAIN RFID. It's ISO IEC 18000-63, or sometimes called GS1 UHF Gen 2. And the other, besides the air interface, we also need tag encoding that is guaranteed to be globally unique. And both of those things are non-negotiable, because without both of those things being implemented accurately, it's not really possible for these systems to communicate with each other, and it's not possible for these systems to scale to the types of scales that Mark was talking about there in his keynote presentation. So when we talk about standards, we're effectively talking about that common way of communicating. It's not just about the air interface and encoding, though. Other things also are standards dependent. So if we are talking about, for example, the manufacturing quality achieved by a tag or a tag company, in order to be able to share your quality level, you need to have a common way of describing that. And that's something that the RAIN Alliance Manufacturing Quality Working Group has been defining over the last 18 months and been making great progress. And it's also necessary to have a common vocabulary about how do we describe performance of those tags, so that we're able to decide which tags are appropriate for which types of environment, which types of application, and which type of use cases that they are going to work effectively in. And again, there are a couple of standards related to how we describe and share information about the performance of our systems as well. So in practical terms, Chuck, to come back to your question, standards are absolutely necessary for complex systems like these to operate effectively, but also for us to be able to communicate with each other as actors in the system, so that we're enabling everyone to make good choices.
Thank you, Aileen. That leads us right into the next question, which is ideal for Chris Brown of TSC. You referenced standards about how things are encoded, and I know that is an item that Chris is passionate about. Chris, you want to talk about why that's so important?
Yes, Aileen used the term non-negotiable. Great term. I've never used that one. I'll use that term. So, encoding your tags using a standards-based encoding is, as Aileen said, a non-negotiable. Uh, to understand why that is non-negotiable, the first point is to understand the problem that can be involved if standards-based encodings are not used. We refer to that problem as tag clutter. It's just a name. We may change the name. Some people call it tag pollution. But what is tag clutter? What is the potential problem that arises if somebody does not encode their tags according to a standard? Well, to understand what tag clutter is, there's three background concepts that you need to have in your brain. And the first one is that rain tags are everywhere already today, and the population of rain tags is just booming. So if I pull out my rain reader and I press read, I'm here in my home office. If I press read, I can see thousands and thousands of tags. So just keep that in the back of your brain. The second thing to understand is that when you're reading tags with RAIN RFID, it is a one reader to many tags transaction. It's not like barcoding, where when you press the reader on a barcode reader, it's essentially a one-to-one transaction. You say, I'm going to read that barcode. You point the reader at that one barcode. You know that you're reading that one barcode. Yes, there are exceptions, but you know that you're reading that one barcode and you know what that barcode is referring to. The third thing you need to keep in mind is the memory on rain tag. So I have an item, it has a rain tag on it. That rain tag has a little chip in the center of it with memory in it, and that's where we do our encoding. But that memory is binary. It's just a bunch of ones and zeros. It's a long string of ones and zeros. I talk to people regularly and they say, oh, I'm encoding R, the letter R, capital letter R. Well, what you're really encoding is a string of ones and zeros that represents that letter R. There's no glyph, no symbol, capital R encoded into your tag. So if you put these three ingredients into the brain soup there, number one is there's tags everywhere. Number two, when I send out a rain reader signal, it can see all the tags in my read zone. And number three, the tag encodings are binary. If you put these into your thinking, you start to realize, wait a minute, I could try to read some tags from my application. Let's say I have a tool tracking application. I could try to look for my tools, and I could be seeing tags from many other applications that could be interpreted as my tools. So that is tag clutter. Now, the way to preempt, to stop tag clutter, is by using standards-based encodings, which guarantee unique values of those ones and zeros on your tag. And then I can set up my reading system to only look for my tags and to ignore tags from other applications. Have I answered the question, Chuck?
I think so.
Okay.
And that leads us into applications of good data, which I will ask Claude to address. And I know DPP is a big issue right now, and we'll be having a session on it later. But there are all sorts of different things going on within DPP. Can you explain that a little bit and why RAIN RFID is an enabler?
Yeah, sure. I will try to do my best to answer your question. Yes, a regulation like a DPP usually defines goals to achieve, but do not force to use one single specific technology. So this mainly allows different stakeholders to make choices and avoids to be vendor locked. And this is also related to what Aileen stated about the importance and non-negotiable use of standards. This allows other people to make choice and to be not vendor locked. But this choice will also create some challenges for interoperability because you will have the choice, and depending on the choice you will make, you want to make sure that you will achieve the goal for DPP, mainly accessing information about a specific product. So regarding DPP, we have several standards that have been developed by SENS and ELEC JTC 24, which is the European committee devoted to standardization for DPP application. And among these several standards, there is one for unique identifiers and another one for the different data carriers that can be used for DPP. So people have the choice to use different identification schemes and different data carriers. So whatever the choice that will be made, the stakeholders must be capable of accessing the DPP information. That's the ultimate goal of DPP. And I will not provide more detail about this specific DPP because, as you said, there will be a dedicated session in a few minutes later today. But I would like to say that it is worth noting that we can face the same kind of situation every time there is some kind of an application standard that offers multiple technical choices. So I would say the first thing is to choose the identification scheme that you want to use or that you already use, regardless of the data carrier. And because it is worth noting that mainly all identification schemes can be encoded in rain tags. Rain tags is much more than just something that carry a unique binary string that identify a product. There are many different features that allow you to encode any kind of identification schemes. Of course, some of these identification schemes will require more memory or more features than others, but that's another topic. Then you can choose the data carrier depending on the feature you want to benefit, let's say. So choose the RFID. Of course, if your application requires no line of sight reading or high-speed inventory, but you might sometimes prefer to choose QR code if you, I would say, prioritize the consumer engagement, even if, as already explained by Mark, that RAIN-enabled smartphone will be available in the near future. So of course, once the data carrier is chosen, we will have to choose the syntax accordingly. So you can be, for example, binary EPC if you are using GS1 numbering system. It could be a digital link URI if you are using NFC tags or QR code. But once again, it's worth noting that encoding standards allows for the conversion between one syntax or another. So it allows for interoperability. Then you choose the minimum features that the data carrier must support. And as noted by Aileen, you might choose RAIN RFID not only because it allows for high-speed inventory, but it could also be for other additional features like privacy protection, let's say. So this is where interoperability is of importance because some of these features might be optional in the air interface standard and can be implemented in different ways. So for example, if you choose to implement the RAIN untraceable command to protect your privacy, to protect the consumer's privacy, you need to make sure that the tag will not only be compliant with the standard, but will support this optional command. And this is where there is a difference between standard compliance, which is a must-have, and interoperability, because interoperability usually creates additional requirements to be met by the different devices. And finally, you will have also to choose the right level of performance, durability, I would say, of your data carrier. And this will depend on the type of product you want to identify, its environment, its lifetime, and many other parameters. But once again, there are many standards that allow to measure efficiently the performance of this different type of RFID tags. So I think everyone has every kind of standard to enable interoperability, even if an open environment like DPP that allows for multiple choices regarding the data carrier and identifiers.
So you use the word data carrier. Can you clarify that for our audience?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Data carrier is the medium that allow to encode an identifier or any other additional data. So as mentioned by Chris, you have the different syntaxes and you have the different encodings that are very specific to any kind of data carrier. It could be optical data carrier, 1D or 2D barcode, could be RFID, low frequency, HF, NFC, or RAIN RFID. This is a data carrier.
Got it. Chris, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. The RAIN Alliance does host classes on standards-based encodings. So you can go to the rainalliance.org and you can find the classes there. If you are looking at implementing or already implementing RAIN RFID and you've been swayed by my arguments about tag clutter, please go check out that class and sign up for it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, I don't see any questions in the chat, so I've got one for Aileen again. Claude mentioned privacy. How are you going about addressing that within the RAIN Alliance and within the industry as a whole?
Yeah, thanks. I was thinking about jumping in when Claude mentioned that super important word. And we recently published a blog post on, in fact, maybe a couple of blog posts on this exact topic, really to calm any potential concerns about the proliferation of RAIN readers when the environment changes so that mobile phones or standard cell phones end up having RAIN reading capability in them. But the good news is that privacy in RAIN is architectural, it's not an add-on. And there are various reasons why I say that. So first of all, the RAIN tag identifies a product, not a person. So there's no personal data, there's no location history, there's no ownership information. There's really no sensitive information on a RAIN tag at all. It's protected by technical design, not just by policy. And that's unlike something like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, which continuously broadcast up to, maybe 100 meters away. RAIN tags by their nature are passive, which means they only respond when they're actively interrogated. But then Claude talked about some specific commands that are built into the protocol, and there are 3 that we kind of reinforce. There's an untraceable command, which effectively reduces the read range and hides the memory while keeping the essential data visible. There's a concept of a kill command, which permanently disables the tag, for example, at the point of sale. That might happen. And then some tags, and Claude and Chris referred to, different memory sizes and different features. Some tags also support cryptographic authentication for higher security applications, like perhaps related to the pharmaceutical sector or luxury goods. And then built on top of those commands, we really recommend that system level responsibilities, so adherence to regulations like GDPR, so the General Data Protection legislation in the European Union, for example, or linking any tag data to customer accounts, which some B2B customers may well want to do because it gives them lots of additional customer experience enhancements. That the responsibility for that really sits with the deployer rather than with the technology. And we do provide governance to keep that consistent as the technology moves closer to consumers.
Thank you, Aileen. We have a question in the chat, which is unfortunately in Spanish, which I do not speak. I am trying to do Google Translate. He's launching, I've got it. Okay. He's launching, the questioner is launching an RFID project for a company in Ecuador and looking for a vendor to assist me with the solution. We are a retail company. Unfortunately, that is, not a standards-based question, but AIM does have a resource. And Mike, I'm going to ask you to follow up with them on that.
I can do that. Thank you, Chuck.
The other thing I would note is we've run out of time. I would note that AIM itself has resources around all AIDC technologies, including RAIN RFID, including we do have some documents on, for example, the standards for RAIN, the RAIN RFID emblem, as well as encoding standards and kind of a primer on data encoding. So again, feel free to reach out to AIM for additional resources, as well as the RAIN Alliance.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, panel. Really appreciate, again, your time and insights here.